So the judge who will hear the case has already handed out dozens of sentences for those charged with participating in January 6th. And sentences from Judge Tanya Chutkan have often been more harsh than what the Justice Department has recommended. Chutkan is a former public defender who was nominated to the bench by former President Barack Obama. And she has sentenced at least 38 people for crimes related to the insurrection. They've all received prison time ranging from 10 days to 5 years. May Mailman joins me now live. She's a former Trump legal advisor and also the vice president at Restoring Integrity and Trust in Elections. May, thank you so much for your time today. So you're an attorney for the Trump White House. And I just kind of laid out the way that Judge Chutkan has ruled in some of these insurrection cases. Give us some insight here. How do you think that she is going to handle this case?
Well, I think there's basically no question that if you've got a judge who is the only judge who has overcharged defendants more than what the Department of Justice, which is already very aggressive on these January 6 cases, overcharged what the Department of Justice has asked for. And then you've got a DC jury pool. DC jury is made up of 93% of people who voted for Biden and only 5% for Trump, that there's basically zero question that Trump gets convicted on this charge. There's no way the judge tosses it out before it gets to the jury, and then there's no way that the jury decides to find for Trump. So, in my opinion, I would just get this trial out of the way. You're going to lose. There's literally no way you don't lose. But the thing is, Jack Smith has a really horrible track record with cases that he brings. And his case against Bob McDonald, for example, got overturned by the Supreme Court unanimously. So I really see no chance for Trump in the lower court, given all of the headwinds. But I basically see no chance for Jack Smith on appeal.
All right, so you're saying you see no chance for Trump, meaning you do think there's going to be a conviction here?
Oh, 100%. This indictment to me was very underdone. It was, I think, underwhelming, and I kind of expected it to be that because we had not heard leaked information that I thought was very powerful. But maybe I would have. Versus, I think the classified documents case in Florida had a couple of nuggets that made the case a little bit stronger, where Trump admitted that the documents were classified when he was talking about an Iran basically war plan. But in this case, what the prosecution really needs to prove is that what Trump was doing is he had a specific intent to defraud the government, which is not that he was asking for what he was owed or what he thought he was owed, but that he knew that he lost and he was asking to do something specifically illegitimate, illegal anyway. And so what I would look for in the indictment is times that Trump said, "I knew I lost." And the indictment has none of that, not even one instance. This has lots of people telling Trump that he lost, but you have to remember, like, this is Trump, the distrust of the deep state and of the experts was at a real high. This is during COVID, right after COVID, where you have the CDC saying lockdowns work, where, you need to mask up kids. I mean, deep distrust of the government. So you really need, I think, to show Trump knew that he lost, not that the government thought that he lost. And the indictment doesn't do that. And if they had any of that information, it would have been in here. So that to me shows a really weak case. Weak case regardless, I still say he loses in the district court.
What about the other case that is running in tandem with this, the one that there could be an indictment any day now in Georgia, in which there is evidence, there is a phone call in which he is asking for 11,780 votes from Raffensperger. There is evidence here and there. How do you think that will play out in this case?
Yeah, so that phone call has been public basically since it was made. I think that phone call is an ink blot test. If you are inclined to think that Trump is a criminal, then you see that as a criminal phone call. And if you go into the phone call sort of with an open mind, Trump does, sound kind of like a bully and like he's asking for stuff that maybe is just kind of crazy. But you can tell from the tenor of the phone call that Trump has the sense, and definitely other people on the phone call had the sense, and people who are looking at Georgia on the right side of the aisle still have the sense that there was rampant messiness in Georgia. I'm not going to call it fraud, but just messiness where signature matching was maybe faster than it should be and the rates weren't that high, where the number of absentee ballots had bad chain of custody issues, just messiness. And that messiness involved a lot of ballots that should have been thrown out for signature match or whatever issue. And that instead of having to find all of them, instead of trying to figure out all of the ballots that should have been thrown out, what Trump said is that you needed to find just 11,000 of them. So it was basically a request. You don't have to even do your job, according to the Trump team. You don't have to go find all the fraud. You just have to find this amount of fraud, which is like your bare minimum necessity. Now, that's an interpretation, I think, that people on the other side of the aisle will say, no, there was no fraud. It's all been proven. It's been audited, double audited, triple audited, and, best election ever. And Trump was asking to find certain number of ballots.
So May, I hate to cut you off because we don't have a lot of time here. But what I do want to ask you, because we still are waiting to see if an indictment is going to come down in the state of Georgia. But I wanted to go ahead and stick to the indictment that we saw handed down last night. And because you've been on the inside, I wanted to ask you what is going on right now with the former president and all those in his sphere. What is he thinking? How has he been reacting?
Well, no one likes to get indicted, and certainly no one likes to get triple indicted and probably quadruple indicted. It's very expensive. It is a distraction. It's time consuming. It takes attention away from what he should be focusing on, which is the other people in the primary and then eventually Joe Biden. So there's tremendous amount of negative. And yet, I think that Trump realizes that when you get an indictment that looks more like this, so I'm not talking about the classified documents case, but when you get an indictment that looks a little bit like this, that doesn't have new information, I think it is a little bit energizing because it so fits into the narrative that what the Department of Justice cares about is basically politicizing this process. And I think that you could obviously argue with that, but the indictment was just not strong enough to tamp down that narrative. And so I think you're going to see an additional boost. And if Trump becomes a nominee and if Trump becomes president, I do think that there has to be a little bit of an inward look to wonder whether this indictment was part of the reason for that.
All right, May Melman, former legal advisor to former President Donald Trump. May, thank you so much for your time today. We do appreciate it.
Thank you so much.